Like most Pikmin fans, since the reveal of Pikmin 4's gameplay, I've been mulling over the Pikmin 4 footage and trying to make sense of everything and to learn whatever I can. Today, I realized something crazy that could reveal a major change in how the Pikmin are handled. Let's talk about it. In this shot, where a group of red Pikmin battle a fiery blowhog, what looks like a dormant yellow onion can be seen in the background. I found this a little odd, considering that the player already has both blue and yellow Pikmin in their party. In every past Pikmin game, you unlock yellow Pikmin with their onion, with the exception of Pikmin 3, where you briefly collect some yellows with Charlie, but lose them right after, and then have to re-unlock them with their onion. But then I started thinking about it. Could the Pikmin in Pikmin 4 work a little differently? Here's what I'm thinking. In Pikmin 4's trailer, we see clearly that red Pikmin are acquired from their onion in the opening area, probably the first type you encounter properly, as is series tradition at this point. That said, the footage we have shows yellows and blue Pikmin active fairly early, and it all seems to come from the main story, not the challenge mode like Pikmin 3's trailers tended to be. So theoretically, you'll get yellows and blues pretty early because of this, same with the new ice Pikmin. We've seen that the onion has red, yellow, and blue sections as well in a later shot, implying you can produce red, yellow, and blue Pikmin from it as well. However, here's where I think the trailer is a little deceptive. A little while ago, I made a short talking about the fact that the pellet posies in the game seem to shift in color from red straight to blue while skipping yellow. I implied there that perhaps this means you can unlock the Pikmin in a more freeform order, or that blue Pikmin simply are encountered before yellow Pikmin. But then I saw this shot. All three Pikmin types in your squad, and yet what seems to be a dormant onion in the back. But is this really a dormant onion? Let's talk about that first. It seems to line up well with the onion designs of those unused onion awakening cutscenes for Pikmin 3, and these new, more tomatoey onions line up in much the same way with those unused designs. And since this object seems to be lacking the glow that treasures have, it's probably not just a collectible treasure either. I'm thinking it really is a genuine dormant onion. So was this shot just set up for the trailer with an inconsistency that we're not supposed to see? Or is there something more to it? Personally, I think it's the latter, with yellow Pikmin not just being spawned in for the trailer's sake, and here's why. In mainline Pikmin games, onions are not the only way to produce Pikmin. Pikmin can also be produced using candy pop buds. In fact, two of our most beloved Pikmin types, purple and white Pikmin, aren't produced by onions at all as far as we know, but instead via candy pop buds found in dungeons. And in Pikmin 4, we know that dungeons are returning, their entrances scattered all around the surface. Given that caves return, what if you can find Pikmin types in caves before actually finding their onion? These yellow Pikmin, could you create them in the candy pop bud underground before actually being able to make more of them on the surface? I thought about this for a while, and I think the answer is a resounding yes. And the more I look at it, the more I think it's going to be a core mechanic of Pikmin 4. At the end of every cave in Pikmin 2, the player is typically rewarded with a new upgrade of some sort. This tends to be a new ability that gives Captain Olimar and his partner some new power. For example, immunity to fire or electricity, a stronger punch, or the ability to pull Pikmin from the ground with a whistle instead of individually plucking each one of them. These items are usually inside of the body of a boss, and once that boss is felled, the treasure is yours to grab. Contrasting this, acquiring the first new Pikmin of a new Pikmin type underground in Pikmin 2's caves is usually done in a safe area where a garden of candy pop buds grow, and they can only be grown here in limited amount until some of the later caves in the game, where you can repeat them over and over again to get more Pikmin. But that's very grindy. I propose that, in Pikmin 4, these two systems may be merged. Given that all Pikmin types are returning, and there's a lot to work from, plus at least one new type joining the fray with the Ice Pikmin, it seems that there's enough Pikmin that, if the developers wanted to, they could easily use getting a new Pikmin type as a standard reward for going through caves instead of these aforementioned upgrades, or maybe in addition to these aforementioned upgrade treasures. That said, most Pikmin types are acquired by onion rather than by candy pop bud, but on the other hand, all Pikmin with onions have had their own candy pop buds thus far. In fact, it could be argued that the candy pop bud is actually the most consistent way to get Pikmin in the series. By splitting when the player unlocks different Pikmin types and their respective onions, the developers have essentially doubled the amount of upgrades a player can get, all while staying within the "your upgrades are now Pikmin types" framework. And this would allow the developers to balance the game while also adding in certain heavily requested features. Suppose you unlock red Pikmin with their onion at the very start of the game. Then you unlock blues and yellows from caves. These types, although plentiful in previous games, are now rare, and restricted until you eventually unlock their onions on the surface. As you progress further and further into the game and go through future caves, you eventually find more Pikmin types. The Ice Pikmin, for example, is encountered underground according to the first trailer. Purple and White Pikmin could be encountered here as well, but so could Rock and Wing Pikmin. Judging by this gate behind the Emperor's Bulblex that I keep talking about, perhaps Rock Pikmin are unlocked after fighting the boss here. Whatever types you get, in whatever order, would be initially limited in supply, stored in the ship, and you'd be unable to use those Candy Pop Buds again unless you really lost that many of those types. Eventually, you'd start to find the onions for these types, and then you'd be able to make as many more of these types as you'd like. This would explain never seeing an Ice Pikmin onion in the trailer, and also would allow the game to be very, very open towards the end while also restricted in the beginning, which I would really like. A system like this would be great for game balance. Purple and White Pikmin are simultaneously too rare and too powerful in Pikmin 2. Many players reset when losing a single purple Pikmin, for example, since you need 100 of them at the end of the game in order to collect the Doomsday apparatus. And yet, their incredible combat performance almost forces players to use them as their primary weapon. If the player could acquire them in limited amount early in the game, but were able to create however many they wanted at the end of the game, they would be a lot less tedious to use. Plus, this would finally pay off the purple and white swirls and the onion and hay Pikmin, letting these guys finally join the rest of their family in their ship. If you'll allow me to borrow an idea from the Pikmin 3 concept art, it looks like the idea for brown Pikmin taking more nutrients to be created could easily be applied to purple Pikmin. So we know these Pikmin that are already in Candy Pop Buds could easily be attached to an onion, and the same is true for these Pikmin that are powerful from an onion being put into Candy Pop Buds to restrict them. I'm talking about Winged and Rock Pikmin, which are considered too powerful in their own game, where they're mass-producible via onion. There's no restriction saying the player can't just solve every problem using them once unlocked, especially in the case of the Wing Pikmin that don't just totally negate some enemies, but entire puzzles as well. If these Pikmin were initially limited, their small numbers could mean that certain puzzles, enemies, and obstacles can't just be cheesed by using these types, and a prospective player would have to use greater strategy when using them. That said, these types have always been made in an onion, and the player would probably eventually get the ability to do that as well, allowing for these types to be made in bulk and for obstacles posed by their limited numbers to be overcome. Looking at new types like the Ice Pikmin, this system would work great here too for balancing them, especially given that there's a lot of concern in the community right now that they're just too powerful and may be replacing blue Pikmin. If this system was used, their limited supply would be a great nerf, especially given that they'd have to stay in the water when it's frozen. Still, this isn't a perfect system for balance on its own, but if the types are otherwise less overpowered, it could do a lot to help make each and every Pikmin type feel needed in the game, especially if the classic 3 types are the only types you can reliably make together for a while. Now, there's some concern that maybe if these encounters are exclusive to caves, it could be a problem, making too much of the gameplay focused on being in the caves. Pikmin 2 has the problem of a lot of its overworld areas just serving as hubs for caves, and I think there's a legitimate concern that this could happen here. However, Candy Pop Buds can grow on the surface, and we know this from as far back as the first Pikmin game. Since we're in a backyard setting, it's really rather easy to imagine a patch of flowers grown that could be used for Pikmin conversion. And, of course, we already know that onions like to grow outside and need light, as proven with Pikmin 3's Yellow Onion, which needs light to start up. Since at least 2 of these onions will be found outside in Pikmin 4, the red and the yellow, maybe all of the onions are actually encountered surface level, while the types themselves could be found earlier in caves. Maybe you need to get a type in the cave first, so that way you can break down the wall on the surface to then encounter its respective onion. Or maybe it's more freeform than that, and you could either encounter a type first in the cave, or on the surface in the onion, depending on where you go and what you do. Either way, keeping the onions on the surface but the Candy Pop Buds in the caves means that there's really a solid chance that Pikmin 4 does what Pikmin 2 struggled to do, and creates a good balance between meaningful surface gameplay and tense underground gameplay. Or maybe the onions are just found underground, and they're in the stomachs of the bosses like Pikmin 2's treasures. I have no doubt in my mind that the Emperor's Bulblex would in fact eat the rock onion, for example. But what do you think? Do you think this theory is realistic or too much? Do you want this one to come true? Is this a good change to the Pikmin series? Do you think that there even is a yellow onion in that shot, or I'm just seeing something? Are all types coming back in the main story, and how do Ice Pikmin play into this? Let me know in the comments below. That said, I'll stop rambling and end things here. My name is Vantage Emblem, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers! Shout out to my amazing Patreons, Mocha Kofa, Tentacles, Vaughn Briner, and Fernando Arista.